Lost in the waves, I wander, but in your eyes I see no pain. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you all for being so consistent. Today I am in Soweto, the southwestern township in South Africa, Johannesburg to be exact, and I am super excited to take you along on this amazing tour. Oh my god, I am super excited to be in this historic city to learn about the Soweto uprising that inspired the movie Sarafina, which was the first time I learned about South Africa, by the way. So yeah, let me just switch right to the tour guide to give the amazing history of this place.
We're in the southwest of Johannesburg.
Yes.
Or either we are in the southwestern township. So it's a geographical position. It's about 17 kilometers away from Johannesburg to other theories. But to the other theories, they say we are 21 kilometers away from Johannesburg. It's a place that was established in 1903 to 1905 with two slums. Kliptown in 1903, and then the other one is going to be Klipspruit in 1905. Kliptown is because the place is situated next to the river that is called Kliprivier in Afrikaans. That is called Klip River, the biggest river that we have in Soweto. Any river stream that you're going to witness with your eye today, that is the only river that we have. There's no any other river. And then the Klipspruit is a Swedish farm that was found in 1903 by the guys that were coming to Soweto, you know, that were moved from Johannesburg. But what is the reason to create a ghetto like Soweto in 1903 to 1905? It's because of the gold rush in Johannesburg. In 1886, when Coca-Cola was discovered in United States, that is the same year you must think that gold was discovered in Johannesburg. Discovered by the three guys. Two are Australian and one is British, but all their names are George. So three Georges are the ones who discover gold. But with that, it created Soweto to become, it created Johannesburg to become one of those places where everyone will come for greener pastures. People from West Africa, people from all the part of Southern Africa, and the other people from the countryside of South Africa wanted to go and look for greener pastures in Johannesburg. But in the early 1900s, we had a challenge and a problem. There was a disease that broke out. It was known as the bubonic plague. In French, they say it's la peste disease. So it's a disease that was found in Spain in 1400 in places like Barcelona, where there was dirtiness of the area. It was called the red disease. But funny enough, in South Africa, that disease was blamed on black people, Asian people, and colored people. It was really not an excuse of the disease of a bubonic plague. Why they moved people from Johannesburg? Because they say they want to clean the city of Johannesburg because of that disease. They're gonna call them back. But people ended up staying for 20 years to 25 years to 24 years without being called back to Johannesburg. The main reason was for the Afrikaners, which are the Dutch descendants, and the English, which were from England, to share the economy of the country. So they didn't want to be interrupted while they're sharing that economy. They didn't want black people to be minor industry managers. They didn't want them to be next to economy. That is why they drive them 17 kilometers away with an excuse of a bubonic plague. But the reality was about the economy. So easy way, 1910 to 1947, we were under the two former colonizers. 1652, the Dutch people arrived in the Cape with Jan van Riebeeck and colonizers. But in the 1800s, there was another colonizers coming from the eastern side, which were the British. That is why the country from 1910 to 1947 was shared into two. But Soweto was already existing, in 1910. It means that immediately after Soweto was established, that is when they formed the Union of South Africa, which it was a paradise for Europeans to dance and enjoy themselves economically and politically. But yes, it was a strategic kind of government, because they were explaining a lot of things, but they were very smart in terms of how they move people from spaces and how they make those laws. They didn't want people to realize. But from 1948 until 1993, the situation get worse. That is when we experienced 1947 election of the parliamentary democracy in South Africa, where white people could only vote. That is when the Afrikaners win with over 51 plus. They can make a government and they can make the laws. And when they can do that, it means that from 1948 until 1993, we had a new sheriff in town. A guy that is known as Henry French Vervoet, a master and an architect of apartheid. He created 163 segregation laws. And when he created 163 segregation laws, those laws were very tough for black people, Asians, and colored. They started with the law that was called the Group Area State. It means now there will be no more multiracial communities in South Africa. All the each and everyone have to live according to the racial line. And then according to the Group Area State, they started to say all the people of white skin tone color, they are going to be the first, and they're going to be moved to the northern part of Johannesburg, because I'm in Johannesburg, just the same in Cape Town, just the same in Durban. So when they moved them to the northern part of Johannesburg, that is when it means that they were next to the economy, and they kept drive at least about 5 minutes to go to work, rather than black people who are now, for the second time, have to be moved away from the central suburb of Johannesburg and pushed further south for the second time. So they were asking themselves, so where to from here? That is when the name Soweto was adopted in 1963, but not in 1903 when it was found, because people will keep on asking themselves. So with the Group Areas Act, there were colored people. No color today, okay. Colored people is a mix of black and white, Asian and white, and Asian and black. That person is going to be referred as a colored. He was going to be referred as a second class. And me and my sister this side, we were going to be referred as the third class people. And Indian people were also going to be referred as the second class people. But even though all the classes were there, we were not supposed to stay in the same area. And there was also a law that was very strong, prohibition of mixed marriages. That is why from 1950s until today, when Soweto is still existing, very few interracial marriage that you're going to find, because of people have to be married according to their racial line. And people have to live according to their racial line. So all the laws that we put in place, they were affecting black people. Imagine today Soweto is about 1.3 to 1.5 million inhabitants. And that is the official number. But unofficially, we estimated to be around about 3 million inhabitants living in this community, with 9 ethnical languages that we speak, and 2 former colonizers' language, and 1 language that is going to be sign language. It means that we've got 12 official languages, and the extra language I just talked about, Tsotsita, a criminal language, which is a dialect that we speak in Soweto. This community has been like that from the 50s. Things are a little bit difficult because of the situations of the 50s. That is Soweto. But in the 50s, when the laws were created like that from 1948 until 1993, 94 we had democracy, which Nelson Mandela became the first black president. And the liberation movements known as the African National Congress won the election in the 27th of April 1994. And then now we are 31 years of democracy. But last year, things have turned around, and so it is still existing, when we had a government of national unity, which is a coalition government. We're not familiar with the coalition. Now it's the DA, the ANC, and the IFP that are making decisions. So things are a little bit changing, but Soweto is still being existing. Soweto is one of the communities that had 3 presidents since democracy came. It's one of the places that had majority of the people who are in the parliament are also here from Soweto. Nelson Mandela came here as a young little man, who was as a young little farmer actually, and then as a lawyer in 1940s. He stayed in the other side, where I'm going to show you the house today, which is going to cost about 180 rand. And on another side, we've got Dr. Khalima Mutlanti, which is being knighted, as a doctor now with international relations by the University of Johannesburg, which was got the only campus of the university here in Soweto. So that will be Dr. Khalima Mutlanti. He's become the temporary president when we remove Mr. Thabo Mbeki. But we also had another president, which is the current president, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. He also stayed here in Soweto, but in the central spaces of Soweto, in the place called Chewelo. So that is going to be how Southwestern Township is like. But why are we here in this place? This place is called Hector Peterson Memorial, and over there is called Hector Peterson Museum. The place was created in 1992 by the President Nelson Mandela as the president of the ANC. But the museum was created in the year 2000 when people wanted to know what happens. So the place that is called Hector Peterson Memorial is about the event of 1976, June 16. So June 16, 1976, it used to be known as the Soweto uprising, but now is known as Youth Day. But what happens on that day? In 1971 to 1974, those generation of 70s, We unlike the generation of 1960s going down to 1940s, of your Nelson Mandela, your Robert Sobukwe, your Govan Peggy, your Ahmed Kathrade and others. Those people, that generation, used to want to sit down with the oppressive government of apartheid and negotiate and talk and do the stay in at work and the stay away, which they were not more moderate. But when Nelson Mandela and the group arrested in 1960s, the 70s decade, it was the generation that comes to power now. They wanted to fight with violence because they saw that if we're going to talk, the government wouldn't listen. Now we start to do the protest with the placard, the protest with the guerrilla protest, which is like we're going to sing, started to act more, which shows the signs of violence. Even though the people, they were not violent, they were demanding something, but they were showing the sign of saying we're eager for what we demand. We know we are tired of sitting down and listening. Now it's time for action. So 1970s, that was the decade. So 1971 to 1974, the government put fuel fire, by doing what? They introduced 2 laws. It was called Afrikaans Medium Degree, which now they wanted to remove English in black school and introduce Afrikaans. And they wanted also to do another one. If you remove English in black school and introduce Afrikaans, use Frostan Afrikaans. He brought Afrikaans, he wrote Afrikaans, yeah. It was not an international language. Other like Italian, German, which are the languages that you can find around the world, rather than English. They prefer to study in English, students, but not in Afrikaans. It's only spoken in Germany, sorry, not in Germany, in Namibia, South Africa, and the other space that is going to be Netherlands. And sometimes people from the Netherlands, they also say they don't know that language.
Very close to Belgium too.
Yes. You understand that it was the language spoken by 3 countries. Why not English, which is going to be, when you go all around the world with Commonwealth countries, you can get to know that language. So they say, no, we got to protest. We got to go to the government and write our demand that we don't want that stupid education. By doing that, they also introduced another law called the Bantu education, which is the education given to me and the other black sisters and brothers. It was a stupid education, similar to the Jim Crow South in the United States of America. Now, they wanted to remove math, science, economics, and accounting in black school. And they replaced that with us being domestic workers, washing the dishes, mopping the floor, cutting down the trees. The highest thing that you can be was being a doctor, policeman, a nurse, a social worker. Why I say that? I didn't understand when my grandmother once says to me, study my child so that you can be a doctor. I was like, yeah, I can be a doctor. But when I started to say study and be a policeman, study and be a nurse, now I realized that, those were the highest paid job during those times for a black person, a public servant, Because when I say to them, no, I want to be a political analyst or a historian, they say we can't pay for that in university. What's that? They didn't know that thing. Because in the black community, we were made to believe that the jobs that they created for you, it was a high job. And now I read books. I understand that many people were like maybe professor in a black university, because also universities were segregated. And the people like Winnie Mandela, the wife of Nelson Mandela, was a nurse. The first wife, not Winnie, the first wife, Evelyn, was a nurse. Winnie was a social worker. Nelson Mandela was a lawyer. And many people around the politicians, they were like nurse, policemen. It's like all the people, they were in the same cycle of the way that things were. So students didn't want them. They wanted to be scientists. They wanted to be economists. They wanted to be bigger things. But the education that time wanted to deprive them that right. That is why in 1976, June 16, they gathered in the schools of Soweto, 2 schools, Maurice Isaacson and Naledi High, which are in the central part of Soweto. But other students say, why only 2 schools that are going to participate in the demonstration? Why can't we mobilize? By mobilizing, they ended up creating a massive number of the people. They utilized different directions and take each and every school out until they reached 12 to 20,000 students. And then now, the Soweto Student Representative Councillor couldn't now hold them back because they were trying to, running and showing some placard. So the order was not there anymore, because even if you can shout, but the people at the back won't hear you. So that is why it ended up being a bloody day. And the police were overwhelmed by the number of the students, and they started to open fire. and gunned down estimated number of over 50 students, according to the white writers. In the space of a day, in the space of a second day, they say around about 70 students. And in the space of a week, they started to count about 100 students. And in the space of 2 years, because their parents couldn't watch their children dying, they started to say we can be a helping hand. Colored and Indian, which were second class, they say we all want to be equal, you know. So that is what happens in 1976. So the place was created in 1992, and then it was named after Hector Peterson, a young boy who was gunned down 500 meters that direction. And the picture over there is the picture of that young little boy, Hector Peterson. So now, the event never happened here, but why is the memorial and the monument here? It's because there was no space where the young little boy Hector Peterson was gunned down. There's a church which was already existing and the school that was participating. It's part of history. You can't demolish history to build another history. Yeah. And then they moved here because there was a space and they created this line. So the line is called the firing line. It's a line that connects the museum and go straight down and connect with those trees. And 500 meters this direction, that is where the exact spot of the event happened. And that is where the information of 1976 is being stored. The pictures, the documents, and the documentaries.
I think we're going to go to this place.
Yes, we're going to go to the space and show you the space. This side, they've got the walls of void. 15 to 20,000 stone is being used to build this wall. The shorter the walls symbolizes the primary school children participated in the demonstration, like the primary school children. And then the higher the walls symbolizes the secondary school children participated in the demonstration. The space in between is more like a missing information. The number of the students that died is not accurate, the number of the students that went to exile is not accurate, and the number of the students that participated is not accurate. And then over there, we've got water. It symbolizes the blood that's shed. But the water sometimes it runs down. It symbolizes the tears of the parents losing their kids. And last but not least, Nelson Mandela do believe that the branch of olive tree symbolizes peace. He says that in 2 books. A Plot to Save South Africa by Justice Malala, and the other one is known as Long Walk to Freedom, which is the book by Nelson Mandela, which is where you can get all the information of Nelson Mandela's life. And now, we've got this beautiful African wild olive tree. They're unlike the old ones in Europe, where they are short and they do bear olives. This one, they are tall, but the branch is exactly the same, and the leaves with olive tree. So then over there, the first one, planted by Nelson Mandela to symbolize his peace. The second one, planted by Archbishop Desmond Tutu to symbolize his peace. The third one, planted by the lady over there, that she's known as Antoinette Peterson. She's the sister to Hector Peterson. She survived the demonstration. She was 16 years at that time, but now she's a little bit older. She's known as Mama Antoinette Sithole. She's also married. She's one of the most expensive guides in Soweto because she's an eyewitness account. She can tell the story as it is. And the fourth one was planted by a very, very close friend of Nelson Mandela, but is a former United States President, Mr. Bill Clinton, while the rest of the trees were planted by other members who played a pivotal role in 1976.
Freedom is coming tomorrow.
This is the typical properties of Soweto. It's called the meshbox houses. Even Nelson Mandela too, he had stayed in the property like this. That is where we're gonna see today, which is 180 rand to go inside. So these bricks houses were established, by 1940s in this side, which is Orlando West, and then on the other side, which is Orlando East, established between 1924 to 1930s. It was because of the guy that is called Edwin Orlando Lake, the first mayor of, not the first mayor, but the mayor of Johannesburg. So he decided to come on that side and build the people's houses in 1924 to 1934. And they called the place Orlando. That is why the place is called Orlando. It's because of that British guy called Edwin Orlando Lake. He's the first guy to build the people of Soweto first brick houses, where they could say this is a house. Before, it used to be just a ghetto and a slum. So he's the first guy to build the suburban areas of Soweto. But that one, Orlando East, this side is Orlando West. But you cannot really think those houses, because they were built those time, black people were owning these houses. No. Black people, it was very tough for them to own properties. They started to own these properties later. But in 1920s, when the houses were being built outside, they had to sign what is known as the 70-year lease. So at the age of 25, I make an example, you get a property that side you want to stay in, and then you had to sign a 70-year lease. How old would you be to own the property? 95 years of age. Technically, they make sure that they don't have to own that property. You're just going to rent it until you die. It was a very good strategy. But that comes with the deal and the signing of the Union of South Africa in 1913. They signed a law that was called the Native Land Act of 1913, which that law prohibited black people to purchase properties and to purchase land. And 97% of the land was taken and given to West European people. And only 7% of the land was given to who? Black native South African. That is why till today, the politics of South Africa, they talk about land expropriation without compensation. It's a deal of a black child. The event of 1976 never happens in that corner or in that monument or in that museum. It happens here. It's called Moema Street and Vilakazi Street. And there they write the shooting, and on the other side they write the day of the uprising. But this symbolizes what happens before the shooting. This is the policeman with the German Shepherd dog, and these are the students. When they raise their hand like this, they mean Amandla, power to the people. And they were singing our national anthem in Zulu, Nkosi Sikelel' Africa. It means God bless Africa. They were holding placards written equal education for all. But the police couldn't bear the number of the students that participating in that demonstration. Then they left the dog to the student. They never ran away. They pick up the stone and stone the dog to death. That is when the policemen started to open fire and gun down the students. And while you're standing there, this pavement is painted in red. It symbolizes the blood that shed that day because students were lying down all the street. The first batch of students, they were focusing on the police. But most of the students, after, they were running away to show that they were not sure that police were going to gun them down before. So that is when people were lying down in this area. So the young boy Hector Peterson was gunned down on that tree on the other side. That is the last Oliver tree. So this school is one of the schools that was participating on the demonstration, as it's written there. And this church was already existing, so they couldn't demolish this. They take that tree and combine with this tree and go straight this direction and combine with that line that goes to the museum. Or either this tree, when it arrives there, it mixes with other trees and go to the direct tree where Nelson Mandela planted that tree. So that is what happens in 1976. So now we are about to enter this famous street. It is called Vilakazi Street, the only street in the world to have two Nobel Peace Prize winners. First one is Mr. Nelson Mandela first one is Mr. Desmond Tutu in 1984. He's the first black Archbishop of the Anglican Church. He talked about peaceful resistance. Similar leadership strategy like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King. He will never perpetrate violence. According to my own perspective, I normally say Desmond Tutu was a human rights activist because he was not talking more about politics, but the human life. To say if there's a human rights era, he will be intervening and talking and restoring peace. And Mr. Nelson Mandela, he won the Nobel Peace Prize as the old Nelson Mandela. As the young Nelson Mandela was a communist, but as the old Nelson Mandela, he was very calm and a unifier. And he was one man that avoided the country to go to civil war. That is why the Nobel Peace Prize of Nelson Mandela was the joint Nobel Peace Prize with the Afrikaner guy, which was the last president of apartheid, Mr. F.W. de Klerk. They allowed the space to sit down and negotiate for freedom rather than to go to a civil war like other countries in Africa. So that is why our country never went to a civil war. Even though there were ethnical wars and little bit of uncertain wars, but it was not really a civil war between black and white. Then we had a little bit of black and black violence like Rwanda. So now we're going to enter the street.
South Africa is such an inclusive country, and if you take a Soweto tour, you get to understand that from being oppressed, from having such a dark history, you get to understand the power of just being, of just allowing people to be themselves. The streets are beautiful. There are so many colors. We visit them in Dida's house, Desmond Tutu's house as well, even though I didn't get a footage of that. And now we're at Soweto, Beverly Hills. The Beverly Hills of Soweto. Now I saw this online Yeah, I'm so glad that we're here. It looks really nice. See why they call it Beverly Hills.
One side is like photo guide. It's a stadium for Orlando Pirates from the other side, which is the team established in 1937. And this side, we've got a team called Cisse Chiefs, established in 1970. Those two teams, when they clash, is more like Inter Milan versus AC Milan in Italy.
Slums, so from the board. Most of them, they've got the TV.
Okay guys, so that quota was hard. Now I understand. Okay, all the popular food in South Africa keeps slapping. First it was pap, and now it's quota. Okay, I'm getting ready for Bonnie Chow. So someone explained to me, a South African explained to me that Bonnie Chow is like the curry equivalent of quota, and I really look forward to trying that, especially when I visit Durban, because that's where the Indian community is really in South Africa. So I really look forward to trying it. But whenever you're in Soweto, especially this side of Soweto, you should definitely try out this place. Their food is good. Oh, the one you mentioned. Yes.
Any drop of liver you see, that's gonna be every little thing you see with your naked eye, that is gonna be Southwestern Township. 200 square kilometers with over 32 sections. Estimated 1.3 million inhabitants living in. Officially, but unofficially, there's 3 million inhabitants living inside Soweto. This side is Orlando West, and that side is Orlando East. And this is railway line. 14 train stations that we have. They utilize this direction and the other railway line on the other side. So that is going to be Southwestern Township. So now we cross into Orlando East, which is the first section of Soweto, where the first brick houses were being built from 1924 to 1934. They say hello, the young ones. Hello.
We're in Orlando East, as you know already, and I just met this really cute old lady and she said something to me and I didn't understand. I felt so bad telling her I didn't understand, because in a way it made me feel unpatriotic. I know I'm not a South African but it kind of looks like I am. Someone in my comment section told me that I look like a lady from next door. So guys, this tour has been going on for 4 hours, to the point where I believe I'm going to break down. Oh. Whew. Okay guys, I do 30 minutes, no, I did 40 minutes on the treadmill. I can do this. Okay. I think I'm going to break down this whole tour into 2 videos. Yeah.
All right. Looking from this side, this is the bigger side again of Southwestern Township. Every little thing you see with your naked eye, you've got another view. That is going to be Soweto. University now is closed, and then we've got the Klip River over there, and then we've got Klipspruit on the other side. Then this side we've got Nomzamo Park, which is the slum. Only 15% of the slums in Soweto, but they can't eradicate it. It's pretty not really nice, because they don't really have service, which are the basic services.
But this is the area, the lowest area.
Yes, this is the slum of Soweto, yes. That will be slums, but we don't call it the slums, but the underprivileged side. Yeah, because they were just unfortunate because the government was supposed to give them some services like water, sanitation.
Yeah.
But what can we say? Those are the social challenges that we experience.
Yeah.
So I was born in a space like this in the central space of Soweto. But with the social housing Nelson Mandela did, my mom was able to get a house. And then when they get a house, I started to get a job, and then I moved out at home. I started my new life.
This was an eye-opening and educative tour. I am super excited that I booked it, and I am super excited I was able to share this experience with you. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being so consistent. If you're new, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell. Bye bye.